Okay, good evening, everyone. Can we please rise to the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming out this evening. We'll open the meeting up with public comment. And again, front-end public comment is for agenda items only, and our back-end public comment is for general questions. So we'll open it up to public comment. You can rise, state your name, and ask a question. Okay, we'll close public comment and we'll move into our special presentations this evening. Appreciate those leaders of the pack had to wait an extra month. I think we were snowed out at our last February meeting, so tonight we have the leaders of the pack, and we'll start off with the elementary school.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We'd like to invite Kyrie Falca up here. She's a kindergartner at our school. And we have her teachers here this evening, Mrs. Hayes and Ms. Billick and Ms. Turner. So, Kyrie, from Mrs. Hayes and Ms. Billick, they said that Kyrie consistently demonstrates excellent behavior and strong self-control in the classroom. She follows expectations, makes responsible choices, and serves as a positive role model for her peers each day. Kyrie shows a wonderful attitude toward both learning and others, always being kind, respectful, and encouraging. She treats everyone fairly and helps create a welcoming classroom environment. When faced with challenges, Kyrie stays focused and perseveres. Her positive mindset and natural leadership truly make her an outstanding leader of the pack. Mrs. Canosa, your PE teacher. In physical education, Kyrie is a leader by example. She is always on task and enjoys the games and activities she is learning. Mrs. McCaffrey, your music teacher, says Kyrie shows excitement for learning and always tries her best. She follows directions, participates with a positive attitude, and does a great job singing, moving, and playing instruments. Mrs. Petroshak, your library teacher, said Kyrie is attentive, engaged, and enthusiastic about reading. She has been a wonderful addition to our Husky family.
Are we in the way? I don't want to.
You just need a photo here.
All
right, so just
thanks for telling the truth.
Okay.
I'd rather not be.
Yeah.
So we just get another one. There you go. Thank you.
Parents, you can come around front if you want.
Yeah, if you want to take a picture up front, Ken.
You guys go.
Yeah, that's a picture.
This.
There you go.
He's heavy.
He's smiling.
Nice.
Okay, middle school.
All right, our leader of the pack is Hazel Perry. And I would like to point out that I reached out to all her teachers, and there were several teachers that don't have her that were like, can I contribute and just let you know how great she is? So her health teacher says Hazel is kind, motivated, and a wonderful student who always puts 110% into everything she does, including her wardrobe. She's willing to help others, offer suggestions and ideas, and is a great leader both in and out of the classroom. Her family and career sciences teacher said, I'd like to recognize Hazel. She's a confident and friendly student who shows strong leadership in the classroom. Hazel is always willing to help other students, support her classmates in a positive way. She is constantly smiling, has a great sense of humor, and brings positive energy to the room. Hazel helps make the classroom a welcoming and enjoyable place for everyone. Her Spanish teacher also had great things to say. Senora Loveland said, Hazel quietly leads by example when it comes to work ethic, courtesy, and conduct in the classroom. She takes her studies seriously but has a good sense of humor and is frequently seen with a smile on her face. Hazel makes an excellent leader. Back.
And our
Okay. All right, this is senior Jude Van Cleek. Lots of positive things to say about Jude's well-rounded being that he is. Mr. Rizzo, Jude is one of those unfairly smart, ridiculously charismatic humans who somehow has an elite music taste. Clearly, the universe is playing favorites. Teaching him feels less like a job and more like trying to keep up with a walking highlight reel of good ideas and the greatest playlists ever created. Miss Meyer, Jude is thoughtful, curious, and funny. He adds valuable energy and perspective to class discussions. His candor and sense of humor humanize conversations and interactions that might otherwise be rote. He's truly a delight. Coach Geller, Jude is the perfect fit for Student of the Month. I love his energy and attitude in class. I also love coaching him on the tennis court. He's hardworking, coachable, inclusive of others. Congratulations. And Mr. Shaw, Jude is a true leader in both concert band and jazz ensemble, dependable, responsible, courteous, and kind. A gifted and deeply musical drummer, he has elevated the quality of every ensemble he performs with. While his talent could easily lead to a professional music career, we know Jude will remain connected to music wherever life takes him, and he still somehow finds to deliver a mighty fine pizza from Brenny's.
Okay, on behalf of the entire Board of Education, we congratulate our leaders of the pack. Job well done. If you'd like, you can leave, or you can stay and listen to our budget presentation. Or no, I guess not. Exciting.
Yeah, just to make sure. Yeah, she's fine otherwise. There is a call, it's been a fever going around the classroom. Fingers crossed it doesn't make it to you guys, but we haven't noticed anything. Yeah, you're like my guard for it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're up, sir.
Well, thank you for the great introduction. I know this everybody stayed, but you know. So, good evening, everybody. Tonight we will present the revised revenue and expenses for the 26-27 school year. We'll discuss the shortfall recommendations. We'll talk about the repair reserve proposition, and we'll discuss due dates. So, as stated in our previous presentations, the state aid is comprised of two components. It is foundation aid, which is primarily based upon a formula driven, and then it's expense-based aids, which are based upon the expenses we have through the prior year. I'm going to focus primarily on the high cost and excess cost because that's the only major number that has changed on this page. There's $150,000, and I'll explain. The governor's estimate of $589,989 is based on the data from the 24-25, which it has lower expenses and lower students than the 25-26 school year. The state will amend the estimated $589,989 aid to align with our actual 25-26 school year expenses, but that will not happen until after our budget has been approved. So this happens every year. We have expenses that are expense-based. The governor uses basically an average on some of the estimates for the prior year. Every school district goes, wait a minute, that's not solid enough, and then they look at the projections and see if they would like to use those. We did a conservative of 150 because we think that's a fair number that will increase in the high cost excess cost. And I have data to back that up from Questar BOCES, and we've also vetted it through our fiscal advisors. So that seems to be a fair number. Any questions? Okay. That leads us to, with the addition of the 150,000 to the state aid, our estimated revenue increases to 59,032,759. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the expenses. Well, with the expenses, my job has been the last couple of months to look at the expenses, go through every expense line, detail by detail, seeing where I can cut costs. We cut off spending to the principals and admin and other departments. And based upon that, we're going to look at some of the fund balance we have for this year. But in terms of 26-27, we looked at the numbers again and we went over the BOCES component. That seems to be the major issue on the screen here. Basically, the major expenses are the result of vetting the BOCES proposed 26-27 service request. And in doing so, we realized we had the reclassification of some students from BOCES to private tuition. Thank you, Sarah. We had additional additions and deletions that changed the BOCES number. It looks like it went down, but as you can see in student services, that went up by $69,000. That's just moving one or a couple of students from one level to another, but we amended the expenses, and that increased our expenses by $58,213. Questions? Okay.
Desmond, real quick, just a snapshot. What are the highlights of the BOCES expenses?
Well, the highlights of the BOCES expenses? Most of the expenses, I would say the biggest point is special ed, followed by the CTE expenditures. The admin, we flushed out some expenses that were impacting the school lunch fund, where we had an additional $10,700, which we felt wasn't appropriate. We challenged that. There are other expenses that we have, I would say, that are relating to other services. In terms of what I'm thinking off the top of my head, I can see it in my mind. I'm just trying to get it to my tongue. Basically, we have charges for like WinCab that we have expenses in there for. We have charges for, as I said, CTE and special ed. Those are the major drivers of what we've had. And I can say,
then on the revenue side, we get back 8 on that.
We get back 8
That's
on
what that 2 million is?
yes, on the BOCES, that's what the 8 on the BOCES is, that's what that is.
Is the capital project and the
No.
lease in that line item?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Definitely not. We also get back when, and we've talked about this, we also get a little bit of a, BOCES is set up that you spend and get aid on it. And if you have like a pot of money left over, they distribute that back to the districts. We've also included that in our revenue. That was about $400,000. And that's kind of average of what we've been getting over the years. Question?
Yeah, I have a question, but it's on the revenue. Just a clarification, other revenue sources, is that interest on the bonds?
That's other revenue sources is interest that we have in terms of the cash that we have in our accounts. That's some of the interest that we have. Other revenue sources can be, we get prior year revenue.
I just saw that between the 310 and 324, there was a $400,000 positive change.
Yes.
Which was good.
And that was the last presentation, but I'll go over it with no problem. It's, once again, it's made up of the increase in interest. We have been looking at interest income at about 225 over the years. It has been higher than that, but we've been very conservative.
Right.
I'm a little bit more aggressive, only in certain things. And that was one of the items. We increased it by another 200,000. So there you got a big jump in that line there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions? Okay. We've talked about expenses. So that brings us to the change. At the last presentation, 310, I presented a shortfall of 667,991. as of today, with the changes in the 150 in revenue and the $58,000 increase in expenses, that actually reduces our shortfall by 91,787. So the question becomes, how do you fix that shortfall? What do you do? So basically we can go through, we can either reduce supplies and expenses or equipment. We can cut positions. I've said I'm not a fan of cutting any positions. We can wait for the legislative increase to occur. We can allocate reserves or allocate fund balance. So tonight, my recommendations are threefold. We can either A, use the reserves. We can use the ERS reserve of 76,204. I use the ERS reserve because the ERS rate went from 16.5 to 17.6. I figured that was the most appropriate increase that we could use. I used 76,204 and approximately $500,000 in fund balance. Once again, closing the gap of 576,204. The second option is just using strictly fund balance, 576,204. Your last option, if everybody can notice, there are X's on the screen, and that's not because it's too small to put the number in there. That's because I don't know exactly how much the state will give us when the legislative run comes out. It could be higher, it could be lower. There is a conversation out there right now. The legislature is thinking about increasing the foundation aid from 1% to 2%. That would be about $130,000 in addition that we would get, which would reduce this shortfall even further. But I can't count on that just yet because the numbers are supposed to come out April 1st, but we all know how the government works. It will be sometime in May. Once again, we could have that if it does come out in time when we have enough time to adopt the budget. We could use some of that state aid money and add it to fund balance. These are my recommendations for the board to think about. Question.
We have an assigned fund balance of 1.15 now. If we followed Plan B of 576, what does that do to the assigned fund balance in the following year?
You and I are on the same page. So let me hit the next button and go to this page. Gives us a breakdown of the reserves that we currently have on our books as of June 25. We've got 3 million ERS, 1.7 in TRS. We have a tax cert of 865,000, employee benefits and accrued liabilities of 942. Your capital reserve is at 3.5, which we've always wanted to increase. And you've got an unassigned fund balance of 3.6. The formula off to the right says unassigned fund balance. The way the state works is you take your proposed budget, you're allowed to have a 4% allowable unassigned fund balance, which would be 2.3. Our assigned fund balance is 3.6, which means we have a possibility of using 1.297 of fund balance. And I am requesting only 500,000. And this is before we finalize this year, which we possibly have, we could have another amount of money going back into fund balance. So it could be, I'm using part of this year's fund balance that we'll get to fund back the fund balance, but I need something to close the budget. Does that make sense?
No, my question was, what does that do to the assigned fund balance in the following year? Would it be 1.150 still?
No, we're not going to.
Or it would be 1.6,
No, it would be 1.1 because that's assigned. That is what we actually say is assigned fund balance. The way this works here is that at the end of the school year, we're saying to the board and to the community, if we have all the revenue and expenses that we have, we'd come up short. Well, we're going to tap into the fund balance, not the assigned. The assigned has already been established as part of the numbers that we've put for this budget.
And if we assign more?
If you assign more, then it becomes the number that we carry next year. So to your point, if we're 1.15 right now, if we assigned another 500,000, it would become 1.6. And that would kind of follow through. And that's something you don't want to do right now. You don't want to assign it, because once you assign it, then you have to then take it back as unassigned. I prefer or recommend that you just use it as the unassigned fund balance at the bottom. Once again, it's a simple P&L or basic accounting procedure. You ran out of money, I'm taking it from my little reserves. You've already assigned 1.1.
Okay.
Question?
And that'll remain 1.1 in the 27-28 school year when we're working on the 28-29 budget.
Correct, as compared to being 1.6.
We did something similar last year where we borrowed from that fund, and then as monies came in, we were able to basically
Satisfy that. Okay.
fill back in some of it. We weren't able to fill it all back in, but we were able to fill a good portion of it back in.
Okay. Questions?
Jasmine, looking at your third possibility, which is all X'd out, and based on our budget planning, we have to adopt by less than a month from now, April 21st, I believe it is.
Yes.
So, and we have a meeting on April 7th, which we're going to discuss later, if there's the necessity for that meeting or not.
Mhm.
But if we went with that scenario and the state aid came back with an increase, that would reduce the amount of fund balance you got to apply towards it to
Absolutely.
meet the reduction that we need. Is that a doable thing, putting us at the 11th hour at that point? So,
Yeah,
I mean, that
time
would
is
be
not
my
on your
question,
side.
because who knows when that budget is coming.
We still need to see the state's final budget. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
The interesting
week,
thing is,
weekend.
so let's walk through that for a moment. We don't get that number right away and we adopt our budget. Oh, look what happens next year. As we get it, the state will say, this is the revenue that you're supposed to receive. We will get that. That will come to us. But now that falls into our bottom line as extra revenue that we got for that year, helping fund balance. So it's kind of a yin yang. You're actually kind of taking it out now, but then replacing it back with hopefully the state aid that they're giving you and savings that you're going to get. So it kind of washes itself out. It's never perfect, just a little bit more of a balance. Questions?
I'm not a fan of pulling from reserves, so I mean, I like the second scenario, just going with fund balance. I mean, out of all those reserves, legally, are we allowed to pull out of some of those reserves, like the capital reserve? Can we pull money out as long as we put it back?
Not
No.
the capital.
Not in the
Not the
capital.
capital.
Capital is very
Right.
specific.
Okay.
Your
But all
ERS
the
and
other
TRS are specifically for that reason. If you have an increase in your TRS or ERS rates, you're allowed to kind of pull from that. That's why I used a portion from the
Right.
ERS, not necessarily TRS, because that went down. Your tax cert, we only have something that's assigned specifically for a case that is out there for 115,000, so that's legally bound for that. The employee accrued benefits, that is just if everybody left the district, how would we pay out everybody's salaries? That's just an accrued liability line, and the capital is specific. So yes, you can use some of these reserves but they have to fall in line with the purpose.
yeah, I mean, the ERS, the cost went up. You have a reserve for that. I don't know. I'd lean towards scenario one.
Yeah,
Without
we're already
additional
pulling
aid,
76,000,
really,
so
we
it's
do
not
get
a
something
big hit
additional.
there.
But
I just feel those reserves are a cushion for the years when we're going to get a big hit where we need that reserve.
Right.
yeah, that's a lot of.
That's a lot.
Keep it,
I'm fine with either one.
once again, if you look on the screen here, this 1.297, you're using a major portion of that. The remaining portion will be bled into these reserves.
Right.
So, and that's the way it
You'll be
works.
filling them back in.
We're still filling it
Yeah.
back in. Once again, I've said it, yin yang type of thing. You're taking it out of the reserves right now, but you're gonna put it back in the reserve once you start looking at your fund balance for this year going forward.
And we make those decisions, I believe, in August.
Yes, you do. Once we've got the audit done, we go to the audit committee. The audit committee reviews all the numbers. Our auditors then say, here's your fund balance. We go back to the exercise of it has to be 4%, and then we allocate accordingly based upon the board's recommendations or requirements that they have for the reserve funds. We put the money back into some of these reserves. And we can fully fund them or fund them appropriately to what the board is requesting,
Anybody else?
which
have
then
any-
saves for your rainy day.
Any feeling as far as where we want to pull for?
I'd like the option in number two there. I'm not a fan of taking out of ERS or
Even though you got 3 million sitting there, that's a lot of money. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, you're good, it's fine. I explained it.
Well, that being said, we move to, if there are no other questions, we move to proposition number 2, which is for the establishment of a reserve repair fund. The purpose of the reserve fund or repair fund is to provide the district with a dedicated funding source for significant or non-recurring repairs to facilities and equipment. It is voter approval is required to establish and to fund the reserve. There is no time limit for the reserve, meaning you can keep it for a longer period of time, not like capital that had to be set over a certain period of time. This has no limit. And that is similar to your ERS, TRS, and all of the other reserves. I've recommended a cap of $500,000 for the funding. However, keep in mind that that $500,000, if you meet that for the repair reserves, it can be transferred to the other reserves, or what most school districts do, they transfer that to their capital. So you're kind of creating this reserve that's for repairs, try to keep Mr. Miller happy, to do everything we have to do for any emergencies, but if not, we move all that money, I'm not gonna look over there, we move all that money to the capital reserve, which is where we wanted to build that capital reserve up. So when we do have these significant capital projects, we have a bigger pot that we can pull from. Once again, it's moving money accordingly. There is a resolution on the agenda tonight for review and approval, and it is up to, once again, requires voters' approval to establish and to fund. So we're putting it forth today. So.
And we don't need voter approval to utilize it.
You don't need voter approval to utilize it, but you do have to have a public forum explaining how you're going to use it. There's another caveat: if you have an emergency, what they consider to be a real emergency, not just emergencies that we think are emergencies, but a real emergency, you can use the funds immediately. But once again, you'd have to then replenish them accordingly. And so informing the public is done at the public hearing. You can do it when we start off the agenda items. We have a public forum and explaining that what we're going to present. So we're back to the calendar, April 7th. There was a question on the table if we're really going to have that. April 21st, we have to have the board meeting is to adopt the 2027 budget and adopt the tax report card, which we've gone over. That has to be done. And then May 5th is our next board meeting, which is the legal budget hearing. If there are no other questions.
I'm going to go back to the board on your budget balance recommendations, because I think we need to have some kind of clarity here amongst the board members that what scenario we'll move forward with. The April 7th meeting, I don't believe we're going to know where state aid is going to land. I don't think we're going to have a direction at that point. Spring break's coming upon us, and I think all our lovely folks up in Albany are going to take a break, and they're not going to work on finalizing a budget at that point in time. So I think we need some clarity from the board to move in a direction that Desmond can finalize at some point in time, and then wherever state aid hits after that, then make the adjustments. I know Mike, was looking at the reserve and fund balance. I can go either way.
Consensus.
Yeah.
I'll support consensus if
Absolutely.
you've got 4 members here saying we really just like the fund balance only option. I'm not going to vote no to that.
And I think what administration needs to know most tonight is that we are not interested in making any cuts to program. So as long as we have that, I think that's going to settle our folks within the schools, knowing that we're not coming after program and positions. And I think some other districts are in that. I know there is another district right now meeting. They're in a much bigger situation, but if you remember, we were in that similar situation a few years back. So as long as we know that piece, the other thing, we don't necessarily need to know tonight if you want to go with A or B, just as long as we know that we're in that ballpark, and then we can run those scenarios, and that can be decided at the next meeting. The only thing that really needs to be decided this evening, other than are we going to do any cuts, which I'm hoping is not. The second thing is, are we doing the reserve? The reserve fund needs to be moved on this evening if we're going to establish the reserve fund.
Going back to your mentioning of cuts, I mean, a few years ago, we had deficits in the millions. And
1.86
and the
million.
necessity there for cuts in that we're talking right now of a $500,000, $500,000. We have the reserves and fund balance. We can utilize that, and there will be no cuts to staffing and programs. So I think it's apples and oranges comparing 1.8 million to 500,000. So
I think that
the
message.
board right now has to make a decision.
I think that message just helps
Yeah.
our
Of course,
faculty and
reduction
staff and
in
families.
force.
Understood.
Are always sensitive discussions.
Yeah.
And there's two sides to that story. One is finances.
Right.
The other is program and enrollment.
Right.
You know, so if we're not hearing from the district that there's some overages in areas or folks we can't, which we haven't, program looks good, we want to carry everything.
Yep.
On the expense side, this is totally manageable. As Al said, we've bridged much bigger gaps. What's going on in other districts are the results of their past decisions.
Mhm.
The same is true here.
We were at 1.5 at one point.
Yes.
And there was sleepless nights and lots of cuts. But we're not cutting services, we just trimmed down the numbers. You dug into the revenue as deep as you could, finding as much revenue as I said before, analyzing in that regard. We gave a very small increase in terms of expenses to the departments. We didn't do a zero-based budget, which probably is gonna come, just to put it out there, maybe next year, zero-based. But we've had increases in a lot of other items, but it was trimmed down to the best point. You know, any deeper than this, and you have no fat, you have no wiggle room left in your budget. If something should happen, things go up and down. If you don't have some leverage, then it's really tight for 26 months.
So when I look at our reserves, I don't see no leverage there. Am I wrong? If you go to the reserve slide, there's millions of reserves there for various reasons. I understand. But I don't feel that we're not insulated with unforeseen expenses.
Okay.
Am I wrong in that?
I don't think you're wrong in that thinking. I think we were in that spot a few years back,
Yes.
where those numbers were much lower, and I think that's what some other neighboring districts, they were utilizing those funds down to a level that was not sustainable. And that's the big thing, is what is sustainable moving forward? And that's where we always have to look. It can't just be solve for today. It has to be solve for today and look to tomorrow to make sure that our decisions are not going to adversely impact the program in the future.
Sustainability is very important.
Yeah.
And you know, when your 2% tax cap, when you go to that 2% tax cap, and we know that's not 2% every year, or whatever that expense
Right.
comes out to be through the equation the state allows, that's expensive too. There's been some increases. Yes, we're doing capital projects, but I don't know if that's always the best scenario either,
Sure.
because they represent increases to the taxpayer. And so it all has a part on the sustainability discussion. Thanks.
Okay, so I think we've got the two subjects we have to discuss, the budget gap and the reserve. So Jen, do you have any input on where you'd like us to move to balance the budget?
I agree with everyone's line of thinking in not cutting program or cutting staff and being as sustainable for the future as possible. So, one or two as we've talked through it, I'm on board with everyone's thinking so far.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm fine with one or two. I mean, ideally, I would love to get more money from the state, so that obviously reduces what we're pulling out, either from the reserves or the fund balance. And I know if that does happen later on, you'll do what you can to fund that back. But, I mean, in my opinion, either the reserve and fund balance or the fund balance, it's, as Mike said, it's pretty the same. So I'm fine with that.
So you have a direction pretty much from us, which way to go
We
with it.
support your recommendation.
Yeah.
If the state comes up with money, then it's all fund balance and you wipe out the, option one, which would be the TRS reserve, depending on what we get back from the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on the repair reserve, what's your feeling?
Have we ever had a repair reserve before in the past?
No, I don't believe so.
We established a building reserve probably 10, 15 years ago. Somewhere in that neighborhood, we never had that. We initiated the building reserve, which has been a benefit to the district because I think our last 2 capital projects have been tax neutral because of that building reserve, capital reserve. And I think that'll move forward even for our next capital project with what we have in there right now. We heard Bernie Donegan's office give us a scenario. It looks like the next project could be a tax neutral also because of that reserve. And what Desmond had said earlier, we established a repair reserve. Those funds can transfer over into the capital reserve if and when we have a next project. But right now, it's an emergency fund for repairs.
So the discussion to take place for the establishment of the repair reserve under new business is happening right now, right?
It's on our agenda. If the board decides not to move forward with it, then
I'm not supportive of the reserve, and I'll tell you why. It's just more of the people's money that you're holding. If there's any way that could be given back, whether that's 3 cents a taxpayer, $3, 30, whatever that is. Yes, it offsets and it's budget neutral, but ultimately the public decides on the capital project. It's just, when I look at that reserve list, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that you're holding.
But the reserves, like you said, there's certain things that you could use that reserve money for.
If I open up the budget, there's several lines there that say maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. Could the money go there? I mean, we have maintenance lines in our current budget. I think the issue is we're exceeding the fund balance and what's left over, and these are very good ideas on how to retain that surplus. And so I'm going to get outvoted on this one because I think that a lot of people are going to think it's a good idea to establish a repair reserve. My argument is I believe that reserve money exists within the budget already under maintenance contracts, contractual lines. So that's Heather, if she, might have a different perspective altogether and say this is why you're wrong, Mike. But that's where I sit right now.
I don't disagree with you there, but I think a perfect scenario this past spring or winter was the water main break. Did that come out of funds that were in repair reserve, not repair reserve, but in the maintenance and building and maintenance line items? Of course it did. Or it came out of some other funds. But I think establishing this, and this is my take on it, is that we might not need to use this for 5 years at all. We might not need to fund it any more than maybe once. And if it does have some funds, from a fund balance, we throw $100,000 in here. It's just a cushion to pick up any repair issues that fall upon us that we're not budgeted for. And that was a perfect example, the water main break. I think there could be other ones.
I think you just said it was covered from within the budget.
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely. But I don't think
I hear you.
I don't think it would be a foolish thing to do from the sense of we're not going to abuse it.
Of course.
If it's a true repair, a boiler breaks down, we need a new mower, whatever, it could come out of this.
Right.
We don't, as a board, we don't have to fund this thing each and every year.
Right. You can put $1 in there.
Absolutely.
Put anything you want in there. It's up to the board to decide how much they want to put in there. I just put a not to exceed limit because I wanted to have some type of rails or some type of controls. But you could put $5,000 in there and just leave it there forever and a day. And to your point, yes, we have to find the extra revenue in the facilities line to cover those breaks, even though you may have other revenue sources like insurance coming in to pay a part of it. They don't pay all of the expenditure. So now you're picking up a portion of that. Well, it could have been balanced out with maybe a portion of that repair account. But once again, the repair account is what you decide it to be. It can be from, and I've seen school districts having only $10,000 in there, $30,000, some have $100,000. It's up to the board. Once again, you decide what you want to put in there, and you decide when you want to use it for whatever particular repair that you consider to be repaired. There was a question before, how do we know what is a repair? Well, that's up to the board. And the administration saying we need it for this particular service, is that considered to be a major repair issue that you use the funds for, or can we find it in the facilities line.
And this is pretty much for the infrastructure. This is not repairs to buses or anything major of that.
Nope.
It's infrastructure repair.
I would
Make
consider
that
mostly for
excellent.
There are
infrastructure repair.
limitations in what it's applied to.
You can set those limitations. It doesn't have to, it can be, once again, just specifically for infrastructure. But, you
We
know,
can set the limit.
yes, but bus repairs have their own line specifically. We have that part of the repairs we budgeted for that. Other repairs we have, you know, that are being through facilities, we've got that budgeted for without the increase. Once again, it's up to you.
So going back to what Mike said that if we have lines already under building and maintenance, right, and we pull from that, then the purpose of the repair reserve is if it's beyond that, if we decide to pull from there as opposed to pulling from a building and maintenance line, what allows us to pick and choose what lines to pull from, and then what is the benefit of having the repair reserve line?
So your repair lines on the facilities, you've got a certain amount of money that they're budgeted for, let's say for, you know, buses and other types of equipment that they need. We've got that allocated and we've gone with a 4%, 6% increase in terms of pricing that's gonna happen. Yes, there's a little bit of cushion in there that we could use, but if something goes way beyond that line of repairs, then we're pulling it either from other lines that we have maybe savings in, or you could use this repair line. So it's a choice as to where you wanna pull it from. Either you're gonna use it in your general fund, use those lines up and use that savings that you thought you'd have, or just use this repair line that you've allocated accordingly. It's a matter of choice.
So again, it's the yin and yang. You're pulling funds from this one.
It's either one or the other.
And I would say if you have this established, and again, we were asked to bring this forward to, so the board could make a decision on this. The board would decide how much is going into this from what is left when we get to that August deadline, so that August date. So when you're determining what's going into all of the reserves, you would determine, is there anything going into this year, or are we putting it all into capital? And let's say you get to 500,000 and you can't really put anything more in there because that's what the limit is that we've established, then everything else would go into capital. Or you're getting ready for that capital project and we haven't used the reserve, you can move it all over to capital. Once you move it to capital though, it needs to be voted on through the capital project vote to utilize those funds. So.
Or it could be given back. Or it could be given back to the people.
Yeah, if we don't expend it at
Sure.
the sunset of the capital reserve, which I think is 7 years, 10 years?
10 years.
10 years.
No, that's once it's in reserve. Right? I mean, if you're in excess of budget, you can adjust for that.
I thought you were talking
Give it
about.
back to the people.
I thought you were talking about the capital.
Tax
reserve.
it.
I follow you. So it is on our agenda.
Wait, can we go back to this because I'm not following what Mike's saying? Say that again, Mike.
I think Mike's trying to say that you could then reduce the tax levy limit that you've applied to the public by applying this extra reserve. You can do that, but you're starting a little bit of a slippery slope when you start doing that. You want to make sure that you don't, it's a little bit of a juggle because you're going to give it back 1 year, but as your tax liability or reserve goes up the next year, it may bounce them up a little bit higher. So you've got to be very careful the way you juggle this. You want to give back to the community. I'm not against that. I'm a taxpayer like everybody else, but it's that delicate balance that you have to think of.
Well, yeah, I agree. I would love to give back to the taxpayers, but you have to be careful because if you, like you said, it could be you're giving back all this and then next time you're asking for all this. So you have to make sure it stays somewhat consistent so that it's not as big of a burden to the taxpayers.
And some school districts in the past have done that, but they've given back. And it's not that they give back way too much. And when they bounce back, try to get it back up, they had a higher rate that they had to get back to that level that they needed. In fact, they had to break the tax cap in order to meet what they needed. That was a problem. You can do this, but it is once again a community juggle that you have to just kind of balance it accordingly. I would respectfully kind of address that with our fiscal advisors to say, hey, if we do this, how can we juggle that? I don't want to put that out here right now, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, That's something we would ask them to do. Could we use some of this? Would it be something to that effect? But that's the conversation we'll have with them to present to you.
Moving forward, we're coming out of a project now. When would be a good time in the future years to maybe come out with another capital project?
You are slated to have the building condition survey in
2030 or 2031.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have some idea of what you need to have work on in 2027.
And we said
And then
this,
you gotta kind of look out for
this
31.
reserve fund is 10 years?
Yes.
All right, so we'll still have an active fund as we go
The
into
capital
the
reserve
next
is 10
capital
years,
project.
Capital reserve.
Yeah.
not the repair
Not
reserve.
this one.
But
Capital reserve is 10 years.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So we just don't have to worry about, that can set by itself. And it's not gonna be part of that next capital project. Correct?
No,
Not be used.
the money that's in the capital reserve
Right.
can be used for the next
Yeah.
capital
Yeah.
project.
So
I
that's
think
what I'm
what
saying.
Desmond has said, this money, Joel had said it too, this money, if it's not used, we can roll it over into the capital reserve for a future capital project to help offset the tax to the community.
I think it's also important that this vote that this isn't putting $500,000 into that account. This is just establishing the reserve. The board would determine if there is any money this year to put into that account, and that would be in August. This would just be to establish basically the account.
Mhm. So you could leave it as just on the books. It could be zero. But in August, you make a decision if you want to or you don't want to fund it. And then you move on to the next year. And you can follow helping the community, or you can put it into fund balance, do what you need to do with it. But either way, we've seen in the 5-year projection that at some point in time, if we're not getting enough state aid, if state aid is not growing by the 1%, 2% growth, we're not getting all the aid we think, eventually you're gonna start to tap in and have to tap in to these reserves.
Sure.
And so, yes, you want to fund them, and you've done a great job funding them, but eventually you have to look at, as the budgets go forward, how much do you want to just really tap into that reserves? Because after a point in time, my revenue and expenses are never gonna match it. I'm gonna have to look at other revenue sources, and you don't want to cut services if you have some reserves available.
Okay, we'll move it to our agenda for resolutions for the repair reserve. All right, thank you, Desmond. We'll move on to our consent items. And they are from EA1 to B.3. As usual, take a moment to look through. If you want to pull anything, you have any questions, comments, need clarifications, you can shout that out. You can also pull a item out and vote on it separately or table it for future discussion.
I think they look good. I make a motion.
Motion by Mike to move it forward, and is there a second? Second by Tom. Anybody have any discussion, clarifications needed? Okay, consent agenda items, EA1 to D.3. Motion made by Mike, seconded by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So carried, 5-0.
Okay, and I just would like to introduce that in the audience this evening, we have Stevie Secunda, who will be a leave replacement at the elementary school starting in mid-May to the end of June. Congratulations, Stevie. Stevie is also a graduate of Highland, so I remember when she was here a few years back. Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Okay, we'll move under curriculum and instruction, our principal's monthly report. We'll start with the high school.
Threw us off. Game plan change. Go. That's right. See the best for last.
That's right. Good evening, everybody. In front of you, you have a few different items on behalf of all the buildings in appreciation for Board Appreciation Month, which I believe we didn't get a chance to get to everybody. I know Ian is going to speak to that. I'm going to speak specifically just to the high school, and I know Andy will speak on the middle school. So the trinket that you have in front of you is a 3D printed image from our STEM class with Ms. DeWitt. Her and the students had designed that, printed that with materials here and from our 3D printer with some of the wood engraver as well, and just a little note to there. So thank you for everything that the board does for the schools, for the community, and just our continued collaboration. So just a little thank you from all of us. We appreciate everything.
They made the tiles?
Yes, the tiles and
I think
the
we
apple.
all thought they were
We thought they
we
were
thought they were
Scrabble
Scrabble tiles.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice.
Question regarding
Mr.
Ulster BOCES programs.
Sure.
Ulster BOCES programs are basically available to juniors and seniors. Is that accurate? Or is it just seniors?
Juniors and seniors.
And in the past, are you aware of any juniors or seniors that were unable to attend where they wanted to go? In other words, are we limited capacity? And has that capacity been a problem for Highland?
I think with the new opening of the program, I think some of it was expanded to my knowledge. I think it depends on the situation when they come into the program. If they come in as a junior, if they come in as a senior. So different programs have different demands.
Right.
So it really depends. Some come late to the game. I know we started that process within the last month or so with our 10th graders to get them to visit, show interest in the 3 programs that they go to visit, and work with their counselors on those programs and trying to get in. There's a certain amount of seats allocated per component district. So for instance, Kingston sends a large population of students. Therefore, whatever their formula is, I believe they have more
Some
seats.
Arwada or something, right?
So
I got you.
essentially, every student goes in with 2 choices, a first choice and a second choice.
Okay.
And then they move through their choices. Yes, has there been some difficult conversations where a student hasn't gotten in to their top choice? Absolutely.
Right, I'm more concerned that they haven't gotten in at all.
To my knowledge, I think it's very rare.
Okay.
But again, we have a lot of kids that want to get into those high demand, hands-on type stuff. Electricals, very high demands, automotive, welding.
But I'm sure they can't accommodate all of
Exactly.
the schools. I hear you.
Yeah, so they do they do their best. There is movement, and there is openings where different programs have availability, and essentially it's waitlisted for some of those things if somebody's really set on a CTE program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Not a question for you, probably a question in general, and maybe somehow we can get the information back from leadership from Ulster BOCES. But being that all the component districts worked on a capital project for them, they're expanding or renovating Port Ewan site. We also approved the lease agreement to go to Ike Park 87. And now I'm hearing that there are some shortfalls here, not enough capacity, blah, 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 blah. What is BOCES doing to expand the programs or employ more staff to expand the program? What are they doing? Are they just pulling from the component districts to fund all this and not expand it? Just have a new facility because it's, it's golden. I would like to see Dr. Schenker come back to this meeting again at some point in time, and we need to pinpoint him on what are they doing to expand staffing. From what I'm hearing, it's not happening. We're probably status quo from when they were working out of the Port Ewan facility. But yet, they spent $40 million to upgrade New Paltz and Port Ewan, and another, I don't know how many millions of dollars for the iPark in the lease agreements, and we're not expanding programs.
Did the spots increase at all, or have they stayed the same?
I don't know those specific numbers, and I don't think those numbers have really been specifically said. That's kind of like a notion that's out there that, hey, we're in a bigger place, like we did.
So yeah, I mean,
It's-
I understand, like, there's certain programs that are of high demand, so you would think if they're putting in money and agreeing to the money, that those certain programs would get more spots or
Well,
bigger.
it sounds
So
like,
that-
hey, just increase sections. Not easy to get those specific trade instructors.
I think it's important that we
True.
highlight
All
those.
certs they need. I'm sure they're
Part of the
working on
work,
it. I heard a lot of good things about iParks.
So just to add to that,
excitement
Mike,
about it.
just a little
The
bit.
facilities, yes.
But our
The
kids
modern
aren't being
facilities and
negatively
all that, but
impacted.
have they
Everybody
increased?
gets their, by and large, it sounds like 99.9% of the kids who are eligible to go get their first or second choice. So we're not saying no to kids. So when you talk, I heard concerns about capacity, and quality of choices is a whole other thing. But as far as capacity, it seems to be meeting our needs right now.
Yes, and I don't think it's this big grand increase because when we talk about sections, it's very different, like a high school setting, right? We have classrooms, or we can add a classroom, add a teacher. They're in these, very hands-on machinery and
They're
there's only
laboratories.
certain-
Let's face it, they're
it's
working labs,
yeah.
right?
So it's not like they have the capacity to add a classroom, add a whole nother automotive section, add a whole nother culinary section. So it's the areas that are still whatever the square footage of the areas are.
Understood, but the way it was presented, it was they were going to increase the facility. So they worked with the same amount of students attending out of that Port Ewan site. Now they've gone to a larger facility and they're still occupy the Port Ewan site. So why hasn't things expanded?
Well, aren't they still in process? Aren't they still in their phases of construction too?
I think
Yeah,
it's-
but they're pretty close to being complete. Yeah.
I think it's important that we either have Dr. Schenker come, or I think board members can attend that annual meeting coming up on April 9th at iPark. And the component districts will be there from across the county. That would be a great opportunity for everybody to get that answer. Which I know Lisa's going to demand that we know who's going to that meeting on April 9th, because we need to get that number back to BOCES for April 1st. But again, if board members have not been to iPark, this would be an opportunity on April 9th for you to go there and visit the facility and see what. It's a beautiful facility, but there's definitely
All
some
the new
shortcomings.
Facilities like that are
Yep.
beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I believe we were around high
Purpose behind
80s
them.
2 years ago, and this year we're close to about 118 between AM and PM programming. So we've had an increase of students going, and
You're
again,
going to
they've been
see
able
a
to-
heavy interest in the trades nationally.
It's all over.
Listening
She
to
just sent me
TED
something
Talk.
earlier.
There was something earlier that I found online of Mike Rowe, like Dirty Jobs. Like he created this whole scholarship funding for the trades for 2-year programs or less, blue collar jobs, and the scholarship money that he is getting for students going into beyond high school is amazing. That he's
They
putting
talked
out
about
there
that
for
program being nationalized.
Yeah.
There's real interest and paid
Yeah.
by
It's paid. Like,
Fortune 500
yeah,
companies,
are
right?
putting in to give the trades and blue collar industries getting more people into that, and corporations, Fortune 500, are putting money into these scholarships for
Exciting.
this. So
There's 150,000 jobs that are vacant because they can't fill them. I know that
Yeah.
from my past work. You can't find people.
And then just the last thing, I know I've taken up a lot of time with the high school report. Just want to highlight from my report, we had all of second grade from the elementary school up. A bunch of the teachers here, and heading that off, Mr. Rizzo, Mr. Welch, Ms. DeWitt, running an in-house, in-district field trip that went very smooth. So much that we were able to harvest enough sap to have a building-wide pancake breakfast tomorrow with that. So it was really cool to see all the second grade classes up here with the teachers, seeing the high school, seeing the process. getting outside, seeing a little STEM, seeing a little history. Beyond that, it was awesome, and I know Jess Murray was here to highlight that for the first day. So thank you to everybody that contributed to that. Kathy for bringing them up, and Mr. McCormick coordinating with us as well.
Thank you for being a good host.
Yeah, it was a good time.
That sounds great.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Elementary school.
Oh, really threw us. Ooh. Best for last.
Just come from you? No.
No, middle school, shameless, candy easy.
Yeah, that one's from us. That's from all our kids. You know, there's some that you probably can read, and probably some names you might even recognize on there. Might be a few. So yes, thank you guys. And then obviously that's on behalf of all of our buildings as well, not just administration, not just us, all across the district. Just thank you guys. And again, we tried for this a long time ago, and snow days and everything else kind of put us back a little bit. One thing that I just want to highlight, and it's kind of not a thing you put on a board before, but our Girl Scouts for all, they come in at night, set up huge balloon displays. We just celebrated autism awareness. Down syndrome awareness, and prior to that, we did International Rare Disease Day. So they came in at night, did huge balloon arches, stars. They have made these like picture boards and so on and so forth, backdrops and everything else. And you know, first thing in the morning, the kids get to see this when they walk in. So I didn't know where to put that, and so I just wanted to highlight that was kind of a cool thing that's done behind the scenes that just kids get to show up and see, and they get really excited about it. And then we're gonna do one. They'll be doing another for autism awareness soon. So I just want to highlight the girls.
It's a great way to give back to. Yeah, that's cool.
And like I said, the kids walking in, and especially like little kindergartners, you know, they're like really stoked. They take their pictures, and so that's really awesome. So I just want to say thank you to that. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
That's for last.
Yes, that's right. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, the middle school, we went straight middle school, which is like bribery, candy, things that we try to do to
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, give people what they want. So hopefully you enjoy that. I also color coded the peeps, or we color coded the peeps. So thank you. That's it for all of it. I know some people hate peeps, but also, so thank you. Obviously, that yes, it was our contribution, but it's from everyone else. We really appreciate what you do, and it's a thankless job, and we really appreciate it. So thank you for everything. No updates, one quick highlight in my report. We had a really cool program that came, Mrs. Bowman and Mr. Early, our gym teachers, came to us a couple months ago and said, hey, we want to do a mini golf unit and we want to build the mini golf holes. And I was like, yeah, that's great, let's do it. And so they teamed up with Mr. Conklin and his fax classes and Mr. Banks and his tech classes to create mini golf holes. And they are super, they're like, whatever we could find in the basement, but we did it. We had a mini golf tournament, and it was a really great collaboration between three literally different areas, like very different areas in the school. And it's something that we want to continue next year and maybe make it more of a real, building actual mini golf holes that we can use in the future. So be on the lookout. And yeah, so it was a really cool program. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think Jess is doing something on that too, or she already did. So, but that's all I got for today.
You didn't drill any holes in the gym floor, did you?
No power tools were used. Tape, glue.
Or in the bricks.
No.
No hammering nails in the bricks.
No, I don't think so. Am I missing something? No. No, we did not destroy anything, Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
Not yet. Next year.
Any questions for Andy? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, folks.
Okay, director's report. Any questions for our directors? Every meeting. I have one. Building condition survey. Are we looking to do one soon? We need to do one. Do we have to do a board resolution to hire a architect to do that? at some point? Are we doing interviews, or are we using our existing architectural firm to do that building condition survey?
We are not using our existing.
Okay, so we should go
We have
out.
We could go with a invitation for interviews, or we could put out an RFI, whichever way.
And that is mandated to be done, I believe, by next spring. It's on the portal. So
right,
it should
so-
get started.
All right, we'll do that. Anyone else have questions for our directors? Thank you, guys. Another job well done. All right, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Boyd.
So one last plug for our panorama survey, which will close this Friday. We had our students take that earlier this week, and it's been out to families and staff. So a few more days for people to fill that out if they haven't yet. We encourage everyone to do so, to share those their thoughts with us. And I know our principals highlighted a lot of things, but I do want to really point out some of the stuff that we're talking about and some of the events. We've seen a lot of great collaboration when we're talking about elementary school, working with the high school, collaboration between tech and the PE department. So I really just wanted to highlight some of those things this month, that they're pretty special events that are very memorable for kids. And at the elementary school, they can reply on the number of minutes that they had on the readathon, but anecdotally, we've had some great stories shared with families, and some of these are shared at CSE meetings, some of them are shared at concerts. When we see families, kids really bought into that for this competition. We saw a lot of competitiveness amongst kids and adults. A healthy competition, but seeing students walk into scholarship concerts with a book in their hand because they're getting some extra minutes while they wait for an older sibling to perform was just really quite special to see. So I just want to really highlight our buildings for putting on some of those events with the extra effort, because it really does make a difference for our students and everybody. So we have spring break coming up. Post spring break, we will hit the ground running. We have our state tests coming up, and ELA at the elementary school will be on April 14th and 15th, and at the middle school on April 21st and 22nd. Our math tests at the elementary school will be on May 5th and 6th, middle school on April 28th and 29th, science at the elementary school on May 12th, and middle school on May 8th. This does take a lot of coordination and scheduling, so again, thank you for everyone for helping set those up. Our high school AP exams will kick off on May 4th and continue for the month of May. And lastly, updated kindergarten numbers. As of today, we had 96 packets out for our incoming cohort of 2026 kindergarten students. 54 out of the 96 have been returned. And next week we will begin to send out our signups. We put out a sign up for families to come in on that May 8th day for kindergarten screening for those families. So we'll start those signups and give families an opportunity to pick the time that they bring their child in. So looking forward to getting that scheduled and meeting our newest incoming students.
Is that the norm that they pick up 100 packets and only 50% are returned at this point?
Yeah, so sometimes, and then there's some follow-up. So we know the families that took them out. Sometimes it's them gathering some of there's a lot of materials required that we do have for families with proof of residency, birth certificates, right. Health forms. And there's a big packet to fill out. We do try to streamline it as best as possible, but there's a lot of information that we need to have from families. So we'll follow up with the ones that are out, but we are accounting for them to hopefully come on May 8th.
Okay.
And there'll be quite a few that will come in once we get that next message out that they're picking slots. Then that kind of kicks those other ones into gear to get theirs turned in.
And we'll get ones filtering from now all the way through September 8th. Yeah.
All right, any questions for Dr. Boyd? Thank you, sir. Superintendent?
All right, so I mentioned it before, the Ulster BOCES annual meeting, the UXPA meeting is Thursday, April 9th, 6 p.m. at iPark. We do need to RSVP to BOCES by the 1st. you know you're gonna go, please let Lisa know so she can get that, that number up to Shyla. Our spring break does start at the end of school on Friday. So Friday the 27th at the close of school, and it ends on Sunday, April 5th. We will be welcoming students back on Monday, April 6th, and a message to that effect is going out to families. I actually scheduled it today. It'll go out Friday afternoon. We are in the beginning stages of our budget newsletter. I want to thank Jess Murray. She's our representative from BOCES that does a phenomenal job on that every year. She's already been reaching out to our departments and our teachers to get those stories that fill that blue newspaper. We all know that newspaper, right? And then Desmond and I will start creating the script for our film or our video that we do every year. That has gone over extremely well. It gets a lot of hits and it reaches a lot of people that might not necessarily get out to a meeting, or you know, I can forward it out to the community, and it gets the information in people's hands. We will have copies of budget newsletters in all of our buildings and actual copies of the budget once we do adopt. So anyone that would like to come and see that, we'll also have it on our website. But that video kind of succinctly in about 8 or 9 minutes gets it into a format that people take a look at and hopefully inform them so they come out to vote in May. And that's all that I have currently.
Okay, any questions for the superintendent? Okay, we'll move on to Board of Education, new business, establishment of the repair reserve. We had quite a bit of discussion earlier on. We're ready to move it to a resolution and take a vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Establishment of repair reserve. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the following resolution. Whereas pursuant to General Municipal Law 6-D, the Board of Education is authorized to establish a repair reserve fund for the purpose of financing costs of non-recurring repairs to capital improvements and equipment. And whereas the Board of Education has determined that it is in the best financial interest of the district to establish such a reserve to address significant repair needs without undue impact on the annual operating budget. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the establishment of a repair reserve fund subject to voter approval with a maximum authorized balance of $500,000, and be it further resolved that the source of funds to establish and fund this reserve may include unassigned fund balance, budgetary appropriations, and other legally available sources as determined by the Board of Education. And be it further resolved that the use of such funds shall be subject to the requirements of General Municipal Law 6-D, including a public hearing and approval by 2/3 vote of the Board of Education, except in the case of emergencies as defined by law. And be it further resolved the board that the following propositions shall be placed before the qualified voters of the district at the annual budget vote held on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. I think this has to be established tonight because there is a 45-day period that we have to have it before it can be put on the.
If you're not having them, even April 7th, it would be kind of close.
Correct.
It would have to be
That's cutting
decided
it
tonight.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Motion by Tom, second by Janine. Do a roll call.
Okay, I'm gonna just state your name, just say yes or no. Jen Becker,
Yes.
Mike Bakaxias,
No.
Tom Miller,
Yes.
Janine Gembel,
Yes.
Alan Barone.
Yes.
That's 4 yes, 1 no.
All right. BOCES annual meeting and board members, administrative budget vote. The following are the dates BOCES will have set on their calendar and for the board to be aware of. BOCES annual meeting, April 9th. Please RSVP to the district clerk prior to April 1st, 2026. And the BOCES countywide vote is April 21st. That's the night of our meeting in April 2026. Highland Central School District Board candidate nominating petitions. As a reminder, petitions for nominating candidates for the office of the Board of Education for Highland Central School District are available at the central office between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, except for April 20th, which is 5 p.m. The deadline to submit the petition is Monday, April 20th at 5 p.m. No petitions will be accepted after that date. The following vacancies, which expire on June 30th, 2026, are to be filled: a term of Alan Barone and a term of Heather Welch. For any questions, you may contact district office or Lisa Siniglia or L Siniglia at highland-k12.org or via phone at 845-691-1020-0, then ask for the extension 3021. Under miscellaneous, any correspondence, anything for the good and welfare of the district. We're also going to talk about the need for our April 7th meeting. Right now, I don't believe there's a lot on the agenda as far as business. The budget, as it stands right now, I think we're pretty well set on the budget. So if we need an emergency or a quick meeting, we can have it at any time after that. Our next meeting will be April 21st, 2026. And that will be to adopt the budget. We got to vote on the BOCES budget and whatever other general business comes up.
So in your emails today, you got a copy of the Ulster BOCES budget. It will also be in my update at the end of the week, just in case, so that it's all in one spot. So that's what they will go over at the annual meeting on the 9th.
Okay. Is everybody okay with moving just to one meeting in April 21st, unless the need be that we have to have a special meeting?
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
Yeah, I think.
All right. Anything else for the good and welfare of the district? I'll open the meeting up to public comment.
Kevin Rizzo, I apologize for my tire. Frank got me out of retirement. Baseball. I just wanted to thank the board on behalf of the HTA for tonight and going into April and May, knowing that there's no budget cuts to staff and position and personnel is always a good thing, and we appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Jen, second by Janine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Happy spring, everybody.